Hello and welcome to the Enlighten Me with Ronny podcast with your host Ronny. Before we start this conversation, let's jump to our esteemed panel of global leaders. First out is George Bush. How are you today?
Vision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq.
Okay, well that's weird, but let's hear from President Joe Biden.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's gonna be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it. So,
Oh, really? Well, how about Canada? Justin Trudeau. What are you planning?
Building back better.
Okay, how about the Australians? What is your plan?
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the New World Order. And yes, it will be pubs and clubs and
And esteemed Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum.
In short, we need a great reset.
World Government Summit. Your thoughts about the subject?
At Dubai Expo 2020. And the title of this session, are we ready for a new world order?
Okay, let's change subject. What is COVID-19, Mr. Gates, if you will?
It's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu.
And we have some sad news, I hear.
Well, sadly, the virus itself, particularly the variant called Omicron, is a type of vaccine that
We do have some great news, doesn't we, Hillary?
Yes, we came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did.
I also hear that we have an unjust war in Ukraine. So who are we fighting for?
Right now, it's a critical time because we know that we not only fight for Ukraine, we fight for this new world order.
Fuck it. There you have it, guys. Our esteemed panel of global leaders giving their thoughts on about the last 2 years. So instead of listening to those guys, we have, or not we, me, have invited Graham and Darren from the Grimerica podcast that they started in 2013, and they have grown since that and it's a big podcast at this time, and they have the best meme page ever. If you go look at their chat, I'll do it. I save it once a week just so I have more memes to look at. They're the best at that. And they also have the spin-off podcast Grimerica Outlawed, and they have narrated various audiobooks that you can find if you look at audio. What's the page?
Adultbrain.ca.
Adultbrain.ca. There you have it. So welcome, guys. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I don't know how Graham is. He's been hurting lately, but
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good.
So first thing first, I've noticed, at least I think so, you guys are not in the same studio anymore. You're from two different studios. How come?
do you want my answer or Graham's?
Let's go with both.
Well, Graham's become more and more sedentary and of a homebody since he's retired from the working world. And it started here and there, and then it was because of COVID, and he was on isolation, and then he had COVID, and then he just, stopped even entertaining the fact that he might come, and now he just works from home straight up.
Okay.
So even though he's only a 5-minute drive away, but I mean, I think it's the opposite. I think Darren just likes his time alone at home and doesn't want me showing up and lingering around after the show. He just rather be in the studio alone anyway. So I just stay here. And then I save, 15, 20 minutes, just can come right downstairs. Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, we're preparing for living apart anyway. So like, I don't know if we're going to be living in the same city for very long. So we're probably gonna have to separate anyways. So.
Oh shit. That's like the breakup of the century.
Oh no,
You
no,
guys
not
have
like
been
separate, not like separate from just from actually being in the same studio in person, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but at least you guys have been working for a long time together, so that's a big step.
Yeah.
You know, it's to get there finally. You know, they say marriages last 7 years. We made it like 9. We're sick of each other.
That's why I don't want to get married. Just want to have my girlfriend. Then
That
I
is
don't
funny.
have to live up to that stat.
That's funny. Both my long-term relationships were both 7 years prior to this one. So,
Oh,
and I
shit.
was engaged but not married. So that's good. Good. I made it out of those.
Okay. Okay, guys. So I brought you on because you guys are the history buffs that I know of. At least you guys are traveling around with Randall Carlson and watching the floods in North America. And you're also coming to Egypt, as I understand, soon enough, at least. So let's get into. I could screen share that so we can see it. Share. And here you have contact at the cabin. So I've been looking at these ones, and you guys are going to a few different places. Any particular place you guys want to enlighten me about? What you have seen, what you have learned over the years traveling around, watching the creeks that have spawned from the meteorite that hit us 12,800 years ago. My English is bad today for some reason.
I would say the Scablands is the one we've probably done the most, and one we're probably the most comfortable with. It's the closest to where we're at. And it's the one we're going to do next.
Okay, so what's the big deal about this place?
Well, this is, of course, this is Randall Carlson's sort of main, I think his main evidence. It's the one he keeps showing on Joe Rogan. He's showing the Dry Falls cataract and Steptoe Butte and a few other what's the other one called? Potholes Coulee. That's right. Yeah, he's it's basically we're going to tour the place he toured with Graham Hancock, the place he's shown on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. And the place, there seems to be a bunch of people who want to get out in the field to take a look at. So we're going to do that again. I mean, it's just sort of the technology and everything finally has sort of exist to make these events sort of easy to do logistically. And, you know, Randall, it just worked out that Randall wanted to do this kind of thing. And now we're doing it. This will be our third one. Our third and fourth go around here in the fall, and then we're doing it again in the spring. And then after that, it'll go to just once a year. So, I mean, people probably want to get in that sooner than later if they're interested in doing that.
Okay, so I guess his theory is that the floods that came 12,800 years ago, or a little bit more, it's 13,000 something. And I understand that he thought the comet that hit the Earth then was hitting somewhere near Greenland, but it's not the case, as I understand it. Or have you? How is he? Does he have any other news on that, or?
I don't think the Greenland one is confirmed really, but I mean, I think he thinks it's been multiple impacts. I mean, the main thing being with the Scablands, it's right at the lobe of where the ice sheets were, right? They kind of came down into America and those big glaciers melted, and that's where it did the most damage, it seemed, right away. But I don't know if he would even sort of take an argument against maybe the impact theory, but something accelerated the flooding, he thinks. I mean, I don't know. We're gonna have these guys on the show that actually kind of agree in the cataclysm in a way, but they don't think that the comet impact is part of it. So it'll be interesting to get a different perspective on that.
Okay, so what are their thoughts about it then?
I
Just
guess there could
sudden
be CM
climate
like
change?
Robert Schock says, I think CME is more of like a solar event at the same time, like maybe between the flooding of it was a pulse. There was two pulses of flooding, right? There was the first one and then the Younger Dryas. So I think there's other theories that might have been like accelerated through the solar events, stuff like that.
Meltwater some 1A and 1B, right?
Yeah. So it's hard to say, but I mean, it's either way, it's pretty amazing when it's an accepted theory that we in Canada here were under a mile to 2 of ice. Like there's these 2 big ice sheets, like all that's accepted, but it's not accepted that it happened in 1 or 2 massive floods, that ice sheet melted, right? They think it happened. I mean, I don't really understand how they can think it happened over what, hundreds of years, thousands of years, little by little, and now
They
it's
don't
just all
have
gone.
much time for it to have happened. I mean, and they just sort of, they don't really mention it. They don't really mention it. They just sort of skim over, there's a couple miles ice here 20,000 years ago, it all just melted. And it's like, well, wait a second, how the fuck did that happen? How could that even possibly happen when we look at how, I mean, some people freaking out that the glaciers are melting fast now. Imagine how fast they must have been melting when they were covering the entire northern hemisphere, and they're all just disappeared in a few thousand years. I mean, we've been tromping around North America for at least 1,000, that we can sort of talk about or record. At least we have Indians with histories that go back at least 1,000 years, and there was not a bunch of ice in Canada. So arguably much farther than that, arguably all the way to the end of all that ice. So it probably all went away at the same time, and how that happened, they don't seem to have a good explanation for it. And it's funny, it doesn't make sense that they just sort of skim over it because you're not really paying attention, I guess, in high school. I wonder if a lot of people ask that question. I wonder if that's like, well, wait a second, how did that happen? Because it takes a long time for that. I mean, Canada is still a frozen wasteland, like 4 or 5 months of the year where the majority of these glaciers are. So it's going to take a minute.
That's a good point too. Yeah, because
disappear. It's not like it's just fucking 40 degrees or 30 degrees Celsius all the time. 100 Fahrenheit. It's not. Half the year it's well below freezing temperature here, and we don't have any glaciers, and they've still managed to disappear. So what happened? What happened? Well, something happened.
Along with all the megafauna. I mean, Randall's presentation, I mean, he did one at our event, and
there's the things, remember the animals that are like, there's like mammoths that are like
flash frozen
with their hip bones shattered, looking like they got hit by a shock wave. I think that's the main reason he kind of goes meteor. But anything could have sort of probably caused that. I guess if you had like some sort of solar event that ripped the ozone, you could maybe have those sort of forces as well.
Yeah.
Some shit went down. And when you start looking at, the landscape in North America under that lens, it's pretty hard to argue against. You can see it literally. I'm pretty well traveled in the Midwest, up and down from Alberta down to, New Mexico border almost, down to, we've been up and down there. We've been over to California. You can go up and down the Columbia River Gorge a few times. We've done the Scablands, Graham and I have driven around those Scablands 3 or 4 times now, climbed around down in them. You go to Yellowstone Park and see the same thing, the Grand Canyon, Zion Canyon, all these great canyons in Utah all seem to have the same story. Mesa Verde National Park, all these national parks seem to be formed by this great fucking crazy deluge of water. And once you start looking at it like that, it seems pretty hard to get around the fact that the water's done something, and then the argument becomes how long did it take, and seemingly quicker than you think. And then that sort of starts to lead into the mythology of creation and stuff like that too, where it was, more humanity crawling out of the ashes 6,000 years ago than anything else. I think Randall says there's legends that it went down to like, less than 1,000 people around the world that had to repopulate the species after these impacts. So we don't know for sure, but we're like megafauna, right? So most of the megafauna is gone. I think it's like us and a few other megafaunas that are still kicking around after that event, other than Africa, right? Africa is the one place where there's still a bunch of that shit running around. There's still some here too. Like there's still, we still have some. I think we still have a bunch of animals that are considered megafauna. They're just nothing like the ones we used to have.
Okay, can you explain that to me as that ancient animals, or what do you mean by megafaunas?
Randall
Well-
has a great presentation that he does, and in one of our events, he pulls out. I mean, he's knowledgeable about so many different things, esoteric and symbolic, as well as just like historical. But I think that's all the large size creature, like large, giant, basically giant sloths, dire wolves,
Yeah.
giant beavers, cave bears, saber-toothed tiger is the most popular one because that's so famous as far as sort of caveman and dinosaurs go. But there's a whole bunch of them, like so many that we don't even really hear about. I mean, giant beavers.
Here it is on the page this is from Australian.museum .AU. Megafauna are large animals that roam the earth during the Pleistocene, 2.5 million to 11,700 years ago. So apparently, none of this shit is even around anymore. I think they're saying the only megafauna that's still around are African, include elephants, giraffes. Africa's megafauna is all that remains today: elephants, giraffes, rhinoceroses, and hippopotamuses. So I guess like our modern day elk and deer and grizzly bears, those don't even fucking count. That shit's not big enough to compare to the shit that was running around here 12,000 years ago. The short-faced bear, and
the short story is that Moses failed. He didn't take every animal when he built the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
Moses fucked up, I guess. I'll go for a list
or
of
Noah fucked up.
Oh yeah, it's Noah, yeah. So does he talk about the Northern Europe at all? Because we had the ice sheet here also.
Here's a quick list of the megafauna that went extinct during at that time. North American horses, of course, went extinct, and then when they were reintroduced by the Europeans in the 1600s. The Glyptodon, which is a giant armadillo. Mastodons, which were basically giant mammoths. Short-faced bear, which is the super scary one. I think if that short-faced bear was standing up, it'd be like 3 times your height.
Oh shit!
It was standing on its hind legs.
Yeah, we saw a cave bear skeleton on our last trip. There's a picture of Randall beside him, and this is a teenage cave bear, and it's already like 2 or 3 feet above Randall, and Randall's pretty tall. And
dire wolf. American cheetah that weighs 160 pounds. So a cat that just weighs the same as you can run fast as fuck. The ground sloth, like Graham was talking about. The giant beaver, which Graham also talked about, 130-pound beaver. And camels, North American camels called camelops, which sounds fucked up, but I guess that's true.
So did they have more like equator like climate? It's warmer because the animals sounds like it was a warmer place in the North America.
I don't know about warmer. I mean, just the north half of North America didn't exist, and everything that was there had a lot longer probably to evolve. There was a little less space running around. It would seem like but there was probably a bigger coastline as well. So I don't know. It seems like those things were fine as long as there was a big food supply. And once shit got tight, they were the first to feel the effects.
And I do think it was warmer back then. I do think when you look, if I remember him showing us those longer term temperature records, I think that's another one of the weird parts is it's been much warmer than it was today, right? Yeah.
It was all over the place. That's the main takeaway from the graphs is like us looking at freaking out about a degree temperature change over a century, whereas up until 10,000 or 11,700 years ago, on average, it was like a 4 to 10 degree temperature swing. It's in that range every fucking 100 years. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's all over the place if you go to the ice cores. And up until So the last like 11,000 years or 12,000 years have been the most stable as far as the ice cores look in the history of the planet, as near as we can tell. So it was super sporadic up until then, which, you know, is probably the reason that we didn't get, well, maybe we did. It seemed, I don't know. It's arguable how advanced human culture got back then. I think one thing we can argue about is that they were traveling around. You know, from continent to continent in boats. At the very least, they were doing that. They seem to be communicating and have some sort of trade network at the very least. But, you know, if there's anything over and above that, they're not telling us about it. You know, like if they had a bunch of satellites flying around, if they're just telling about, if there's a bunch of shit they left on the moon, they're not telling us about. Maybe they made the moon. Who knows? But you know, it's fun to think about is what happened there. But there was definitely some sort of society. I mean, the Mediterranean, I think, has 200 cities or something like that are sunken in it. And I think if they started looking at the coastline of ancient coastlines of America for, you know, what they would look like, where the coastline would have been with 400 feet less water, they'd probably start finding a bunch of cities around here as well. I mean, what's that Bimini Road? All that shit would have been above water.
Yeah, the underwater road. So yeah, that's very, yeah, that's Graham Hancock is talking about that stuff too. And he's in the was it the last book he wrote when he had the DNA from the Australians that they found them in the South America.
Yeah.
And they supposedly would never have met. So
along with like thousands of underground cities and towns, like megalithic underneath the jungle. I mean, it, like what's going to come out in the next little while is going to be amazing. I mean, imagine thousands and thousands of towns they're finding, which where we thought was an old like the Amazon jungle, right? We thought there's old. Well, what if it's just overgrown in all these cities? I mean,
and the water table in Egypt, imagine how much that's come up. You know, we already know there's a bunch of
right
under the sand in Egypt that we can't excavate because of the Nile water level.
And even in your area, like, you know, the Great Britain was connected to the mainland not so long ago, and Doggerland was there, but that was even a more recent flood. Like I think between Denmark and Scotland was fairly recently filled with water, right? I mean, so I mean, what was it like in Scandinavia and the UK at 11,700 before this cataclysm?
yeah, who knows? There's a lot of mysteries going around, and I don't really.
There's another cataclysm in there somewhere. It would seem like 5,000 years ago that fucking hit the ocean and fucked up Doggerland.
Well, I mean, Santorini's fairly close by. That was about 4,000, 5,000 years ago, wasn't it? So, I mean,
it seems there's a bunch of evidence for an impact in the Indian Ocean there someplace too. Like there's a bunch of drumlins on the west coast of Africa, east coast of Africa, and on the west coast of Australia, I think. So I think Randall was saying like 5,500 years ago, there's evidence that there was this impact over there too, which maybe, you know, swamps, finished swamping whatever was left of the channel. You know, it seems crazy that just filled up with water a few hundred years ago. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. Or I guess a few thousand
or
yeah. Well, somewhat, you know, that filled up after. Like, what the fuck? Or that's just them covering up old maps that are actually older than we think.
The old map thing, when you look at
maybe all the Doggerland shit is fucking before the Younger Dryas. Maybe it's all before that, and they're just like, oh no, that's fucking from now. You know, the way our history operates, it would not fucking surprise me.
No, everything is a lie. So,
and there's been a bunch of fucking wars of people who have got to decide what was going to be true going forward. You know, we're kind of just at the first point now where maybe there's enough information flying around that the winners can't just decide what's going on. Just the people who are controlling the websites, I guess, decide what's going on. I don't know if that's worse or better.
Yeah, I wonder, but even if they succeed with the reset they're doing now, it takes like 30-40 years, and then the history is rewritten, and Most of the people are just old people that we sit in the back room and yelling, and people think we are stupid and just making shit up. So it goes fast. The history can be changed. At least in 100 years, you can say whatever.
I'm going out in a blaze of glory.
That's one way to do it. I tried to get a gun for me. The government said no. Because I wasn't the best guy in the military. We have mandatory military. And they told me I need to be a year. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not. So when they told me to go right, I turned left and they took.
Can't you like hunt there though?
Yeah, I tried to get, but I took the hunting license and then I tried to get a gun and they was like, okay, we see that you didn't finish the military because you said no to everything. So we can't
So
really
what
give you a gun.
You need someone when you need someone to just mail you a gun in pieces.
Yeah, maybe. They told me to go out and borrow people's guns and hunt with them and come back in a year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I need to show that I really want to hunt.
I don't think they let us do that in Canada. I can't. Hey, Darren, I can't. Oh, maybe if I had a license, I could. I don't know. Darren would know that.
You shouldn't be. I wouldn't lend anyone my guns. No, fuck no. I'm responsible for those things. But you could, and you can have a gun if you didn't have a license. You couldn't have a gun. You could shoot my gun if you're, within, I think they say arm's reach of me.
Yeah.
So if we're out hunting together, we'd have to be like right side by side. Like, come on, let's go, Ronnie.
Yeah,
And,
I think it's the same. I think the law is made for like your kids. If you're hunting with your kids, you can give them the gun and they can shoot a bird. And
yeah, well, I mean, honestly, the situations that you're in hunting, it would work out quite well. Like if we were all out on an elk hunt, it'd be pretty easy. If there was 2 or 3 or 4 of us, it'd be pretty easy for Graham to partner up with, because I could have 2. Like he could have his own rifle. It doesn't have to be my rifle. So we could each have a rifle. The only idea is that before he has a chance to, blow his head off or do something else retarded, I can be like, hey, bro, what the fuck are you doing? But other than that, we could both have a rifle and be out together hunting, or in a group setting. So, you split up sometimes, but for the most part, I'm usually with at least one other guy when I'm hunting. Right? Like when we split up on our elk hunt, it's, Graham was with me the whole time when he could keep up. He does have a hard time keeping up.
yeah, about this little offshoot what I was planning to talk about, but the elk hunting, is it the same as in here? You just have a phone and you sit around, drive your car somewhere, have your dogs run, and then they say the elk is coming, like in 100 meters, and you just walk in and shoot it. Or are you actually hunting the elks?
Well, the elks we're hunting were on the Air Force base. So, I mean, you still got to find them and track them down, but there's a bunch of them and there's like a bunch of people hunting too. So they tend to be on the move a lot. So they're easier to track down, but no one's telling you shit. And then the rest of the hunting that we do is just in the bush. I mean, yeah, it's hunting. I mean, this year I'm like, 4 weeks away from getting into starting bow hunting. So that's getting super close.
You do that just because it's fun, because it's easier with a gun?
Yeah, well, I'm an enthusiast. I like to be able to kill things with my bare hands and bow and arrow. It's ammo ain't getting cheaper, and it's just, I think it's going to be funner. So I think, it's a lot harder. It's a lot more one-on-one with the animal.
Yeah, that surprised me when I was looking at guns when I tried to get one, and I looked at the ammo. It was like 40 euro for a box of like 25, 30 bullets or something. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, ammo ain't super cheap, and it's just I mean, it's fun. It's fun, I think, to go out with a bow.
Yeah,
Because
Joe
we
Rogan
become
style.
one more nature, just creeping around. You can't, there's no way of doing it out of the truck. You gotta get out there.
Yeah,
Graham
okay.
will probably, I bet you Graham by next year, Graham will be ready to try and hunt a deer. He's
Well,
getting,
he needs to start getting out of the house first.
yeah, that does need to happen first, but and he's got a big meat appetite, so you know he should be hunting already. And he's getting closer. A bunch of stuff he said he'd never do, he's been very quickly picking up. So I mean, you know, 10 years ago he'd never shoot a gun, and then you know he'd never get bow and arrow, and then he'd never go on a hunt. He'd never do that. Now he's been on several hunts, and you know, when we were at the height of COVID, he was calling me up asking to come over and like process my meat for me just so he could like practice. So him and his buddy were in my garage cutting up meat. And so, you know, the COVID was a real wake up call for Graham. He really found his roots in a lot of ways. So now he says he ain't gonna hunt. I would say he's like a year and a half and a couple meat facilities fires away from being like, all right, man, let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of a wake up call to like how little prepared I am for, you know, life skills.
So what's your background? It sounds like you're coming from a very left socialist thinking or something. So
Me? No,
yeah,
no,
if you don't kill
I was a
animals
city boy.
and-
No, I was just a city boy for a while. I mean, I grew up in Vancouver for the most part, played a lot of
Full
hockey.
spectrum. He's done the full spectrum from alt left to alt right.
I've been
Everyone
I mean, I
has
was
been a
this,
turn
you know,
in the alt-right and
yeah,
came
I
back.
was this, yeah, I was a city guy and just worked my way up in the corporate ladder, then drank and did too many drugs and had to stop all that, and then started podcasting and moved out of the city, and now I'm just on that other, you know, trajectory. Right now, I just want to be left the fuck alone.
Maybe it's just moving to Alberta. You know, you just went from the left coast to Midwest, and you're just like, "Fucking get off my lawn, you motherfucker!" Before
We're in
you
like the
come
we're
on
in
my
like
lawn
the
and touch my penis.
we're in like the
That's the
Texas
left.
of Canada, pretty much. Like we're in the cowboy part of Canada, and I came from the California part of Canada, so that probably has something to do with it.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, about Canada, how is Trudeau today? Is he still locking you guys down, or how is that going?
Rumor is he's going to call an election again.
No, are
Yeah,
you allowed to do that again so quick?
yeah.
Is it that a good thing for him? Does he
Oh,
have the support?
they probably have control over it.
He must think it is. Yeah, I think his argument is that the Conservative Party's in disarray, so there'll never be a better time than now to secure another year.
Is that all they get is a year? Is that what he got
Well,
from
no,
last
he's
election?
good.
Is
He was
another year?
good till 24 if he just
Well,
shuts the fuck up.
I know. Why
But
doesn't
I
he just
think
shut the
his
fuck up?
concern
then?
is he can't trust the NDP because all of his power right now is beholden on the NDP saying yes to every member of the NDP agreeing with him, or at least most of the members of the NDP agreeing with him. And you know, the last couple scandals have kind of strained that relationship, especially the one where he was like turned out to be politicizing our little mass shooting here, and maybe getting involved with directing the RCMP, which is a big no-no, and that kind of came out. And the leader of the party that's helping prop up his government had to come out against all that stuff. But then, you know, everyone knows he's also propping it up at the same time. And I think he's got real concerns that he won't win another election. The actual leader of the NDP party is not sure if he'll win his own riding. And if you can't win your riding, pretty hard to be the leader of the party. So, I mean, the whole thing could be a move by Trudeau to say, listen, bitch, you do what you're told or you're not going to be in power anymore. But I mean, Jagmeet just had a kid and he's already got his pension for life. So, you know, maybe he just says, fuck it. I don't know. It's going to be.
But it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter whoever replaces Trudeau. It's going to be the same old thing. Canada is leading the way. We're on the leading edge of globalism, and it's going to be like that no matter who's in power. I think. I just don't think they're going to let somebody to tear down that system in power. Really, if they do, they'll make it a disaster, just like they did with Trump. I mean, it's just they've learned that they've got complete control of the narrative here. Pretty much, I think. I'm more black-pilled about it. I think they just lie, whatever they want. Nobody seems to give a shit. So
how many parties do you have? Because we have 8. Do you have 2, 3?
we're similar to 5.
And
But provincial, there's different provincial ones as well, you know.
And do they have power then, or is he like ruling by
The provincials have a lot of power in a lot of ways. But we don't have great options there either.
In a lot of ways, it feels like one big party in some sense, especially after COVID. Like every party was agreeing with what they were doing, or at least, you know, pretending that they agreed.
We should get Graham to run. He could be the president of Alberta.
Yeah,
But he'll
you
fuck
do.
it up. I mean, here's the thing. He'll fuck it up. He'll do something crazy and we'll be like, really, man? That's what you did? You went mad with power. So would I. I'd fuck it up. I'd be like, no Dungeons and Dragons or no stealing bikes or some shit that someone didn't agree with. And, you know, I'd fuck it up.
Yeah, I've been thinking
Not as bad
about
as they
that.
fucked it up, though. I mean, not as bad as they fucked it. I might just take tax money and live a life of luxury and leave you all the fuck alone. So,
Well, yeah, how would you even do that if you was if you were in the government? How much can you even take away for society to function? Like people are not ready to homeschool. So if you say no more money to schools, hospitals, whatever you're trying, it would be anarchy in like a week, I think.
oh yeah, and most of these bitches can't swim. So I mean, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
I mean, if we need,
but that's what that's what your point was, Darren, to this whole thing is like when you saw them trying to back off of the measures, there was so many people that were freaked out, or at least it seemed like the loud minority was what the politicians were paying attention to, that they didn't even feel like they had a way to back out of it. I mean, that was kind of Darren's argument, is whether it's like sort of algorithms and bots, or whether, because they're definitely getting their feedback from social media. But whether that's the case, I think they felt pretty much trapped. Half the population was saying, what the fuck are you doing? Get rid of these mandates. And the other half was scared shitless and wanted the mandates to stay. So how do you even deal with that?
Yeah, I've been wondering about that. I know they have the tech to check up on everybody, but I really think they live in bubbles, because the media was the ones that was screaming, it's too soon, it's too soon. And they kept going
they're
and kept
getting
going.
funded by pharma.
Yeah, sure.
And our government in Canada, our government's giving them a good chunk too.
Yeah, that's a pittance compared to the pharma money.
The media is state run.
And that's a good, yeah, that's a good point.
Not only that, I mean, journalism is so fucking weak that even the ones that aren't are just getting their stories from Twitter and everything else from the big news outlets. So just the fact that the big US news, which is, you know, the captain of the fucking free world, for better or for worse, no matter what you think of that, that is the case. Even if it's the UK's puppet, it's still the alleged captain of the ship. And all of its squires are screaming out whatever big pharma tells them. So, you know, and if you start, even if like some Canadian news outlet, like a little one like Rebel News starts going against it, I mean, they'll get international coverage from US networks saying, look at these fucking hillbilly, redneck, racist motherfuckers. I mean, did you know that gun charge down at Coots ended up getting dropped completely? I'm pretty sure.
See, that's what I was just going to get into. Right now, it's so bad, it's so corrupt, and there's so many lies that all the media has to do is create a headline, and it can be completely made up, completely false, for the government to use that in their propaganda scheme, to do whatever the fuck they want, shut us down, freeze our bank accounts. You know, I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but when they want to ramp shit up, somebody just generates a false headline and makes up a story. And I mean, it's gross. It's totally gross.
Yeah, I've seen they're trying to seed us at the moment. I was reading the government newspaper today because that's the only thing we basically have. So they was saying that, okay, the fourth shot is here. Try to take it before the winter, because they stated the corona is coming back in the winter. And now in the EU, we don't have anything to heat our houses. So we are going to have a lot of people die from that. And then you have to have the fourth shot. So I think we are going back. It doesn't seem like they're really going to stomp down this winter. I don't.
It's hard to believe, right? Because I mean, BC, Alberta, Ontario, a month ago, less than hang on a
Sorry,
second.
go ahead.
About 3 weeks ago, a month ago, at the end of June, they stopped they stopped adding data of the COVID status, the COVID vaccine status, in all those reports, because it was clearly showing that they weren't doing anything. Actually, it was worse for the people that had all these vaccines. BC, Alberta, Ontario, all official. They're official data, and they can just ignore all that and just say that it's safe and effective and keep getting your boosters. For preparation for the new scariant that's coming around. I mean, it's unbelievable that they can get away with all this. So they stopped actually. I think enough of a shitstorm was created in social media that they probably said, oh, we better stop calculating, or we better start adding that data in, So they're all starting to scrub their data and their websites, and people just don't even give a shit. They just go along. So I think it's coming back too. We'll see.
AHS dropped their mandate today.
Yeah, I saw that. That's amazing. That's our health service, our provincial health service. So,
No,
we were hoping that would happen 6 or 8 months ago, but it took them this long.
I mean, the
right?
thing is, most of those nurses went back to work in March. So I don't know if this is just the official because they're losing something in court. I mean, there's still a big court case going on behind the scenes on that. This might be killing it.
We lost that.
That's
one
going to
here
be
in
what
Finland.
really decides. If the government gets charged a bunch of money here and there, then they're going to have to be more careful, I guess, or shoot some judges. Because I think there was a restaurant in the States now that successfully sued the government, which doesn't affect us. But in Canada, I think what's happened is someone has successfully sued their employer for the time that they were made not to work because of the vaccine requirement. So they were like, I think because at that time they weren't fired, they were like told they were suspended without pay. And they sued, and the court has decided that, they should get paid for that. And then it's funny because I remember Trudeau at one time saying he was going to have everyone's back. If you had a mandate at your work for the vaccine, he would have your back and make sure that you didn't get in trouble. But now he's fucking nowhere to be seen, and it's going to be interesting because the class action suit here with the nurses, I mean, that's against the healthcare system. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, and it's our buddies over at the JCCF that are spearheading that and a bunch of the other legal cases across Canada. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully some of that plays out. It'll be fun. I mean, there has been a bunch of people resigning over in Europe. Hopefully that's not just a preemptive, because I mean, I've been telling my buddies in Europe, it's probably not a bad time to get the fuck out of Europe. But I mean, Europe does seem to be, and a lot of people think it might be North America next time, but Europe just seems to be historically the place that gets fucking steamrolled, whether it was like back in the Genghis Khan days or whatever the fuck happened in the Tartaria days, something seems to have happened there when these motherfuckers filled up the English Channel with water, sometime that happened. We don't even really know when that happened. But, and then World War I, World War II, there just seems to be that history of Europe being completely fucking trashed. And it sure looks like it's shaping up for that again, if not by war or something else, then by your own governments. Because I think it was the biggest housing provider in Germany. Just what are they doing? They're like controlling your gas. So now the only heat you can get between this time and this time is 17 degrees Celsius. That's as high as your thermostat will go.
I think 19.
I'm sure it was 17, but maybe it's 19. But anyway, it affects 500,000 people, and it's summertime.
Yeah,
so
I think the 19 was in England.
It's gonna be interesting come winter. Oh, England! I thought they were fucking so free because they weren't a part of the EU, but they have to do the same thing. You guys are fucked when winter comes. That's my honest opinion. I don't see how that changes. They're going to use that to rile up the population in Europe to fucking have a proper war with Russia, I think. But we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll just use it to gouge you and start like shipping you natural gas or something. I mean, maybe we'll figure out a way to make some money off this and we can hook you guys up. We should start a natural gas shipping business, Graham.
Well, they don't want it. I mean, they don't want it. They don't have to be short on energy. It's all sort of part of the Great Reset. So
Yeah. The biggest problem is when I was listening to the leaders of the European Parliament and the central bankers and stuff like that, and they said every country is going to be equal. And I know Finland, where I am at, we have at least the leaders are saying we have the energy, but I know Germany that doesn't have it, and other countries doesn't have it. So that means, I guess we have to give ours to them.
100%.
And we are up in the north, so it's fucking -30 in the winter. I need my.
It's like Lisinskiism or whatever that shit is when Buddy was planting the seeds in the winter. I mean, that's the same fucking thinking. It's just, yeah. Good luck. Good luck. I guess that's. I mean, I think Montreal made it illegal to like burn wood.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, Canada here. So if you're like, and they have a history of like ice storms and the power going out for days or weeks on end, and it gets extremely cold there. So,
and it's renewable. Just takes a while.
yeah, that's true. Works well.
Yeah, I've tried to. I have some potatoes and carrots and garlic and stuff in the ground. Hopefully it turns out a good harvest. So I have something if shit hits the fan. That most likely will. So, but yeah, I don't have the freezer full of meat because I didn't get the gun. So that's my biggest worry. I was like,
You
for
get a bow
sure.
and arrow?
No, I don't. And that takes years to practice, I think. You can't just
Nah,
go
fuck
out.
that. Nah, you could be good by fucking fall.
You think?
If you start now and you practice, you could totally do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're
you
doing.
really,
You haven't been doing it
within
for very
20
long.
yards, you could creep right up on something. I mean, you could get good enough to get within 20. Then you just be sneaky. If you start practicing now and you practice every day. Have you shot much guns?
No, in the military, I shot my gun, but nothing
Yeah, so
else.
there'd be a bit of crossover from that, for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised how easy that was with the STG, and I thought it was bigger kick, but 150 meters, I'll take out 10 out of 12 people. So
Yeah, the mechanics are very similar. So I think you'd do fine. And you have much closer range. What caliber were you shooting?
they are 7.72, like the
7.6.
AK, like the AK.
7.62. Oh yeah. I got an SKS, which is probably
Okay.
pretty similar.
Yeah, the gun we have, that's, I think it's finished, but it's almost exactly as the AK. If you look at an AK and the Finnish regular gun with that the military has, it's basically the same gun.
Were you guys part of the Soviet Union? No, eh?
No, we were buddies with Hitler. We had
There you
him.
go. Yeah, you can see the resemblance.
Yeah, the England declared war on us when we
So
had
were
hit.
we until he got crazy. I mean, we were pretty buddy with Hitler too until we were like, whoa, too soon. Or
I
something.
think everybody was. Then it got out of hand because the eugenics comes from America, so, or USA, more exactly.
Yeah, or at least the global cabal was fine with it all.
Yeah,
Because
the
most of
bankers.
the war industries just got privatized out of Germany.
Yeah, and he came out in 45 or something, just a few months before he died, and said the bank. No, he didn't say the bankers, but I think he said the money behind us has left, so we're now on our own, and something like that. Hitler said that, so yeah, we were all behind him and hoping for him to succeed secretly. Thankfully, he didn't. But I have one thing about the floods and thing I want to ask you guys. I know Randall is talking about the climate change is not real, it's a cycle. and we can't really do much about it. So what do you guys think is going to happen if they succeed with the CO2 restrictions? Is every life going to die like in like 10 years, or how do you think that will play out? Because CO2 is the thing that
It's
makes life
essential. It's
going.
essential. I know it's weird. Isn't it weird, that they're getting away with demonizing one of the essential components of life?
No, I think they'll be fine because I mean everything was fine before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
So
but
No. But I think what he's saying is if we get to net zero and like CO2 sort of gets like,
well, net
Oh,
zero would just be like us not producing anymore from our industrialization, which I think would be fine. I mean, the real problem seems to be that CO2 seems to be on some sort of a declination over the last, couple 100,000 years. Maybe that should be our bigger concern is because if that goes away, we are fucked. And, maybe that's got something to do with the bees. I mean, who knows? There's a million different reasons why we might be fucking up the bees.
yeah, and all the other small things, I've really seen it happen the last few years. When you drive, you don't get the windshield full of bugs, and just in the north of Finland, then there you get it. But here, I'm in the middle of Finland, and we don't have the like if you drive 100 kilometers and you have your whole car looks like a massacre. It doesn't happen anymore. It happened 10 years ago.
My truck looks like a fucking massacre right now, I'll tell you that.
So you guys have still a lot of bugs then.
Oh yeah, I went and did that Highway 40 run twice. And after that, it was like you couldn't even read my front like vanity plate. It was just like it's all black with white writing. It just looked all black. And I had to go to the car wash and just on the front end for like 10 minutes spraying that shit off. The amount of bugs is fucking insane out there right now.
yeah, something's very weird this year. There's a lot of mosquitoes even.
Well, it's the water because those mosquito eggs can lay dormant, I found out. So if it's too dry and there's not enough mosquitoes, then a lot of them just won't hatch. They'll just fucking chill out. And this year we got a bunch of water again after being low on water for, 4 or 5 years in a row. We got high water. So a bunch of these eggs that have just been hanging out, not having enough moisture to go, are just like, and it's fucking mosquito crazy.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. So
Makes you wonder if like fish eggs can do the same and they were just like hanging out all over the place. Like if I just made a pond out on a field someplace, would it end up with some fish in it?
I wonder what happened after the flood with all the mosquitoes.
Yeah, maybe they were bigger, like everything else.
Megafauna mosquitoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like human size or something crazy. So I have one last thing I want to run you guys by. The reshot structure. Are you in that Atlantis or no? Or how do you guys feel
Sorry,
about
the what structure?
the Richard structure? I don't know how to pronounce it. The
one in
circle.
Northwest Africa, the big
Yeah.
crazy circle stuff.
How do you feel about that?
It's interesting. There seems to be, I mean, we don't know. I mean, I won't speak for Graham, but I don't know. I've seen very compelling evidence for that and for the Azores and for Egypt. If I had to pick one right now, I'd say Egypt is the front runner, but I haven't talked to Randall in a while, so it probably wouldn't take long for him to, well, Darren, convince me that show me why I'm wrong. And I'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. It is in the Azores. You're totally right. So I go back and forth.
I have a sense
that would be the third place for sure. And, I still think that there's a chance that Atlantis was everywhere. And that was just like what we called it, like we call ourselves Earth now.
And a lot of those cities were designed the same with the circular structure. And
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I just look at Atlantis as being more ubiquitous than just a place. Maybe it was to him, but maybe for us it was. I don't know, but I think there's a chance that it was like kind of like we call our society now, I guess, Earth. They called it Atlantis.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's been floating around on a few podcasts. I've heard people talking about it instead of talking a place, they're talking about the civilization. And maybe, yeah, I did not get to watch the whole episode about the Egypt being Atlantis. I just saw the trailer you guys had up on Rockfin. It was interesting.
It makes me think that it might be Memphis and the Serapeum actually, because they're very close together. And the Serapeum is an amazing part of Egypt. It's very unique in some ways. All those huge straight hallways with these alcoves with those huge granite boxes that are, very, very perfectly made in a lot of ways. And I feel like I think that all goes back farther than we think. And I feel like maybe Memphis is talked about in real ancient stuff as well. It's got a lot of lore and mythology to Memphis. Maybe I kind of think that was in Egypt. I mean, Atlantis. But I don't really have a lot of evidence. That's just kind of where my hunch is taking me right now. And I had a synchronicity on one of our trips with, I was telling somebody we were hiking with, I was telling somebody about this theory. And I've never heard anybody say the Serapeum is Atlantis. And then I started walking ahead with this other lady, and she had been to Egypt once, and she was helping Dave Matheson out with all this stuff. And she says, yeah, she mentions the Serapeum being Atlantis. I was like, what? The first time I've ever heard that. And I just told somebody like 5 minutes ago that was my theory. So I don't know, just a little metaphysical synchronicity there to add to my intuition.
So if we put Atlantis in Egypt, what is the pyramids then? Is that energy making things, or what do you think about those?
Water pumps.
Do you mean for the river when it's flooding, or like what do you mean by the water pump?
Maybe. Hey, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. See, Ronnie? Maybe you just solved it.
Yeah, I mean, the Sphinx has water erosion, so some water had to come and go at some point. Okay, guys. In that case, we are in an hour here already. Went very fast, this one.
Yeah, that was
So
fast.
plug everything you have, guys, and let my listeners know where to find you.
You can find everything at Grimerica.ca. Darren's got a couple books out too at a CanadianShame.ca. He talks about the residential school system and the Indian Act and all the real racism that happened here only a few decades ago.
That's all on Grimerica too.
Is it?
Okay. All on Grimerica. Yeah, you can really just go there and find the tours and the chats
and the
audiobooks and everything. Yeah.
Speaking of the New World Order, we just got H.G. Wells's audiobook out called The New World Order, and he goes into very interesting chapters on this stuff. He kind of like was for free speech and free expression and open debate, yet also for socialism and kind of an interesting take on stuff. So check that out. We also got Arcane Schools out recently, which was a huge book on ancient mysteries and civilization, mysteries in relation to philosophy, old Masonic stuff, the Hermetic schools in Christian times, gets into the details of Masonry. That's called the Arcane Schools. Those are two of our latest releases.
Okay, great. So you released one as an episode on your podcast, at least on the plus one, the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars.
Yeah. We did. We put that on both feeds, and that was. It's not a real book. It's like a. Actually, go ahead. Ask your question. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, that was my question. If that's something you have on the behind the paywall, and you just released it just because you find it too important, or.
Yeah, we released it as kind of a little bonus episode for people because I narrated it anyways, and we weren't going to put it out as an audiobook on the official like Audible type thing. So we thought we'd put it in both feeds. And that's just been talked about a lot in the conspiracy circles, that whole Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And it was like this book that Cooper in his Behold a Pale Horse, I think he talked about it. It was supposedly found on a photocopier, or it was some sort of, weird, who knows, right, where it's from, but some of it sort of rings true with what's happening right now. So we thought maybe get that out for audio for people that don't want to read it.
Okay, great. Well, that's that then, guys. Thank you guys for coming. It's a pleasure to have you guys. I was a bit more nervous than I thought. I had my butterflies in the beginning, then I had a few podcasts. It was no problem, and this one I was like, oh shit.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's no problem. You don't have to. We're just fucking douchebags.
Good thing those
But
weren't
Graham gets
mega
nervous all
fun
the
of butterflies. So
Yeah, Graham gets nervous all the time. So that never goes away for some people. I mean, Graham, like he's like, "Ooh, this was got me nervous." I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't really get nervous, so
maybe you're not fanboying too much of other people.
maybe I'm just too high.
Well, that helps too.
Doesn't hurt.
Mellows you down. Okay, well, have a great day, boys. And
thanks, Ronnie.
maybe I'll
Appreciate it.
see you in
Thanks,
the
Ronnie.
future.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. See ya.